thing before I forget. So, on behalf of me and Ceylan, thank you for being here. Um, and I will reiterate again why I felt I had to start the quantum constellations community. And that is because having trained in constellations for a long time, and really seeing that the quantum was actually neglected in a way in terms of all the quantum potentials. I felt that the person that I had to work with was Ceylan, because for me, Ceylan is the embodiment of possibility. Also because I worked with her 2 years ago. And and having said that, I think a lot of the people that have come from the Dr. Joe community really embody possibility. Another person here is Nicole. She was my Theta Healing teacher. So, so I think the way that we will enrich constellations work will be quite different. Sorry, it's summer now, so the kids are on the street. Do you hear the kids? Okay, I hear the kids. It's quite loud. So normally they're all asleep because it's too cold. Otmar, that is fine. So basically, I have evolved my work with constellations very much. And I was talking to Ceylan today, and we were talking about the different types of teachers. And she was saying, actually, yeah, some are very much in the 3D and some are very much more like shamanic. And I said, yeah, that's absolutely true. And also when you start reading up the case studies, they're all very different. And so I didn't want to embark on this exploration by myself. And especially when we talk about something like the quantum potential of a healing, of a health condition. But I felt really strongly that Ceylan had a lot of energy in her field around that. And so I said, let's do this. Let's talk to Peter, and this is why we're doing it. And so tonight I was inspired to explore a little bit more about how I started to work with constellations work. And it was all because of the experiences I gained in my classes and in my work, and also because of the way that I'm informed about the quantum field. I'm going to close the window because I hear the children very loudly. So wait a minute. So I'll rush through the presentation very quickly. Let me close the door. Children are having so much fun. Okay. So I thought a lot about the subtitle, and the subtitle is Giving Life to Quantum Potentials. Why? And I will explain later. And maybe some of the people that are here that have worked with me, like Joy and Simona, they will be able to explain a bit as well. So I was reminded of this specific quote that Dr. Joe was actually the first person that introduced me to it. And he talked about the field as the sole governing agency of the particle. And what that means is that the invisible energy field is what underlies physical matter, or the 3D world. And so when we know that, then there's actually a lot of invisible factors affecting our creations, our life, our health, our personality, and of course, our worldview and our subjective experiences. So when we have been working with Dr. Joe, as a lot of us have for so long, we know too well that he knows that we don't need to change matter. We are now focusing on changing the field to change matter. And the first time I heard this was when he was explaining I think it was in Mallorca. It was the first time I really heard it. Was that there was a doctor that found out that you could, doing scans of women, he could actually see the breast cancer in their auric field or their field before it actually appears. And imagine that if you understand that when physical symptoms or energy healers can tune into your quantum potentials, but also your blockages. Frozen time, time in your energy field, then we know that we don't have to shake you up or let I don't know, do 20 breaths or something. Maybe you could, but you can also, with your consciousness, change the field. So you don't have to do it in the 3D way, talking to people, convincing people, or doing a lot of things with yourself. You basically change the energy. And so what we do in a constellation is we witness the soul movements. And when we talk about the soul, we're talking about the soul of the family or a system. And we see the choices that each of the individuals or even the split self of a person is making. And then we see how one person's decision and choices affects the system and the living field of consciousness. So when you do a constellation, you see the changes happening in real time, and you see people shifting. As one person shifts, another person shifts or not. So you see a continuous movement. So what I think is very, very important is that we have to understand that we're not actually manifesting because all creation is finished, but we are creating the environment that allows the manifestation. And from that perspective, we need to know that a constellation reveal the what is in happening right now, what is present, maybe the things that you don't see, but also what is in emergence, meaning it's not clear to you yet. And maybe if it appears, it might baffle you because you think, wow, this is not me. I cannot relate to this. This is very foreign to me. So, but having said that, I think when you do enough constellations, you start to understand, or when you do enough energy work, you start to understand that we are the field. We don't see the field as separate from us, and we start to shift in our consciousness in terms of taking responsibility for reality and owning more and more of our power. So we shift from victim to creator. We shift from things are happening to me to I am actually co-creating this. I am a vibrational match to this. And so Andrew Carnegie, who was the billionaire that commissioned the book Think and Grow Rich, he actually said any idea that is held in the mind, either feared or revered, will begin at once to clothe itself in the most convenient and appropriate physical forms available. So, and in later this year, I will be launching the Science of Getting Rich Constellations, where we'll be studying the whole book, where we actually talk about the book, The Science of Getting Rich, where in chapter 4, they talk about fifth dimensional creation. So the field that we're interacting with, this conscious intelligence that we're swimming in, that we're part of, it is not separate from us. And if we start to engage with it, it will affect what is emerging or coming into our lives. So what is important is, of course, is when a person comes to do a constellation, they want a shift. And then what will happen is we will choose certain elements to see into what level the person is ready to shift. But very often we actually see that the soul is involved. It's not just a conscious choice of the personality. There's often multiple aspects of the soul of an individual or the soul of a system involved. So, but before we go further, I think it is important to know that I have brought in, because of my years of study with Dr. Joe and other so-called consciousness teachers that really believe that we are co-creating reality, that in my constellations work, I really believe that infinite possibilities exist now and that we can align with and we can bring in before they even appear in the 3D. And I have actually testimonials, video testimonials on my YouTube website of people coming to do a constellation with me. And even before the constellation starts, or as the constellation starts, their goal starts to evolve. And this is because when you make a clear decision and a clear commitment, things start to happen. Yeah. So again, I believe all creation is finished, and that is why there's infinite possibilities. And this is why, you know, when Dr. Joe came up with the change the box meditation, we were all mind blown. And as we continue to see all the so-called crazy out of our mind type of manifestations, we start to think, wait a minute, how limited have we made ourselves? How separate, how much have we separated ourselves from possibility? So how can you work with constellations? So very often when we do quantum potential constellations, we see split selves. We see a conscious part wants this so-called clear intention, but then what is stopping them is some part of them that is not ready or is not open or is actually too scared. And so just as an example, you choose somebody to be you, and you choose somebody to be, let's say, something that is impacting your goal or the thing that you want to create. And what you would see often is that, let's say you want a relationship, maybe a part of you will, even in a blind constellation, will show up that absolutely wants to run away from relationships, or is absolutely not welcoming to love, is actually rejecting love. And that is what gives you the clarity when you work in a constellation. So we can use a constellation to get a lot of clarity about what we're actually giving life force to. Are we becoming a magnet and drawing in certain desired quantum potentials as we think we do? Because we're spending all this money, we're waking up at 5 a.m. doing meditations and healings and doing vision boards, etc. Or are we actually subconsciously rejecting it? And subconsciously is a broad term, because once you see in the constellation that you're actually subconsciously rejecting it, there's something you can do with it. It's no longer subconscious. So what I've been doing for quite some time now is really helping people to hack the quantum potentials using constellations work by, and I was doing this even before I knew about Dr. Joe, and even before I was ever studying NLP. I actually never studied NLP. I did study with Tony Robbins, but he has an adjusted form of NLP. And I was constellating future selves because I felt that my clients were really stuck. And then I had a download, put in the future self. And then later on, I understood that the future self and quantum potentials were actually related to a new box of reality or a multiverse. And that actually, when you create a constellation, you can take into account not just the what is now in the 3D world, but you can actually help people work toward a very, very desired goal. And so the constellation will allow you to have a 3D map of consciousness using other people, using blind constellations, so that these people don't even know what your goal is or what your blocks are or what the history is of your family or your business or your relationships, whatever. And actually all these people, they just download the information from the quantum field. And I have never been in a constellation where people say, this is not accurate. Actually, people are always confirming how accurate complete strangers that don't know anything about them actually can tell them, this is what's going on, this is what I'm feeling. So this is why I have these people here with all these empty pieces of paper. It's actually when you do a blind constellation, and they are really my chosen tool, because nobody needs to know that you're working on a book or your I don't know, divorce, or you know, creating a new job, you want to leave your boss or whatever it is. They don't have to know, but nevertheless the information is going to come out. But what these people will show you, or the quantum field will be channeling through them, is what you need to integrate, what you need to accept, what you need to transmute or own, so that you become a vibrational match, so that you become magnetic. And when I say connect and align, very often the constellation starts with misalignment, and they start with some kind of, let's say, crisis, or let's say some kind of stuckness. And when I say we do a blind constellation, and we do the connecting and aligning with the future potentials beyond the constellation, I am talking about after the constellation. Actually, quite a lot of work still needs to happen so that you maintain this new consciousness in your life and you can actually receive the quantum potential as a real experience in your life. So, and I'm sure that the people that are here that have actually worked with me can actually share more of that. So what do we see in a constellation? And I keep on referring to the David Hawkins scale because it's very important in the work that I do, is that we witness the internal misalignment of you and the different parts of you with your goal, but also the answers that come in from the field. Yeah. So people start spontaneously channeling solutions. One of the very important things I need to mention is, why do we put in the future self? It is because of my evolution in thinking and really understanding that in reality, all time is happening now, and that time is not linear, and that we are working with something called bicausality. Bicausality is, simplistically would say that when you work in the future, let's say you work with a future potential, that the past also changes. But what if the now is the past and the future is the present moment? Then we in the now would be the past. So if you think about bicausality, you're not just thinking about the present causes the future, you also think actually the future can affect the past, which is the now. So, and when you actually work with these type of concepts and you start doing what I call time bending, was actually a download that came to me when I was working with Ellen in the receiving game. And then we had a lot of synchronicities with this specific term called time bending. That was when the movie Tenet also came out, which was about time bending, which was mind-blowing because I never thought about time bending. When you work with time bending and bicausality, you actually understand that the quantum potential that appears in your constellation is not something you made up. It is something that is very real. And even though you might be so far from this specific quantum potential, actually you could be seeing it as your future self is traveling back to the past, which is now, to talk to you. And so this is how I also work with clients when I actually take them through the courses, and we take them through a whole curriculum of different teachings and really experimenting with it and playing with it, instead of being stuck in this 3D linear timeline type of worldview. So, and those of you who know, would love the change the box meditation, yeah, the real work is to become a match to this other box, which is another you. But that is the hardest work there is. And Wallace D. Wattles, the author of Science of Getting Rich, says to think health when surrounded by the appearances of disease, he says appearances, so it's the illusion of disease, or to think riches when in the midst of the appearances of poverty requires power. But whoever acquires this power becomes a mastermind. That person can conquer fate and can have what he or she wants. So how did I come up with Constellation Clearings? I came up with Constellations Clearings because I could see that whenever we were doing constellations with quantum potentials or goals, a lot of internal resistance was showing up. Like every money constellation or relationship constellation we did, there was a lot of, let's say, clearing that had to be done in terms of people to actually even want to meet their future self or their goal. And they were what we saw over and over again, that people said that they wanted it. They did maybe even bought all the books upon it. They bought all the audio programs on it. But actually, when you look at the constellation, there was a lot of internal conflict and internal split intentions. And so because I didn't want to waste my life being in all these constellations where people were just struggling, I said, okay, now I'm going to use clearing to actually align people from within while we're doing the constellations. And I experimented with it. And so Why did I combine constellation and clearings? Because I felt that in traditional constellations where we look at the ancestors or we look at the relationship dynamic with other people of the system, people often get lost in what the ancestors are doing or what other people are doing or what has happened in the past. And what I felt I wanted to focus on is I wanted to laser focus on the choice of power of inner alignment. And that is also another teaching. As we know, Abraham says, one person in alignment is more powerful than millions that are not. And I can tell you from my own experience, that is really, really true. It doesn't matter what other people think. If you know that you want something and it's going to come to you, like Dr. Joe teaches, you are the vortex. You don't go to it. It comes to you. You can literally make these so-called impossible things happen. Yeah. And so the constellation clearings that I started working with is instead of focusing on entanglements with the past, with the ancestors, or with other people, we focus on the individual's openness and readiness to entangle with a desired quantum potential. So, and what we found is that when you use the David Hawkins scale of consciousness, a lot of the time, this is very similar to Dr. Joe's graph when you go, when the frequency raises. On this level here, before 200, we actually have a lot of, let's say, scarcity and victim consciousness. And these are all the programs we run. And actually, the transformation happens when people start to step into this, which is they start to take responsibility at 200. And if they don't take responsibility and they go back into victimhood, you can see that they literally get stuck. And most of the people, I'm one of them, we are in different stages of actually knowing that we're actually this infinite creator here. We're mastering still this, and we're still overcoming this. So none of us are here all the time, but what I did in the course that I was running, I was training people to recognize when they were here. And in the constellations, we brought people into this state of being, and then we were clearing everything that was in the way to be here. Yeah. So what do we find? Yeah. So basically, we saw very often that people have split intentions. So let's say you really want the money or the relationship, but actually you have seen a lot of things that are not so nice about having money or success or the relationship. So could be your own experience. Yeah, work hard, pay a lot of taxes, overwhelmed. You never have time for yourself. You cannot devote things to your business, or the relationship is like it will lead to betrayal, heartbreak, etc. So these split intentions are all justified, but what we can do with a constellation, especially when we bring in terms as future self, and all the things that somebody is not, let's say, owning, when we start to put in what is missing, the higher solutions come, but we sometimes still see that people or the system are not ready for them. And so what we find again is that you are given the pill to get into the matrix, to really become a Neo, but you say no to the pill. You don't want the pill, or you say no to love. You stay stuck. And I myself was there for a long, long time. I was doing a lot of constellation healing work and in other modalities. But when I was in a constellation, I would literally feel all the anger and resentment would come back in my body. And so, so there's nothing wrong with that. It is just telling you that you're not ready yet. But it gives a lot of clarity, because then you can find maybe more alignment from within and really have a conversation with yourself, why you are believing that you want A, but actually you're more committed to B. So when we do a what I call love and prosperity constellation, that was like a download I had. Instead of scarcity and fear, we are gonna constellate love and prosperity consciousness. And when it comes in a constellation, you can also feel it. People really, when they represent love and prosperity consciousness, they have a different type of outlook as well. And the rest of the field, they can feel it. When we ask people to represent all these different levels of higher consciousness, people as representatives start to channel things that they sometimes never had access to. Yeah. So for instance, when I bring in new concepts, like one of the concepts I had as a download was called Work is Love in Action. We constellated it, and the constellation about a career and money really took on a complete different direction. When people don't even know what source is, source is my supply. Yeah, so not money or a job is the source of your supply, but source, the divine, is your source of supply. One time a person constellated that as a representative, and she said, I have never felt this before. It's like divine has got my back. And so when you come to a constellation, and maybe it's not even your constellation, you're just a representative, you might be chosen to channel a new consciousness that are quantum potentials for our collective, but that we haven't even really embodied, or we haven't even seen it on a large scale. But you could be chosen to represent that if you're ready for it. And that really allows the constellation work to be extremely interactive and extremely dynamic and beneficial for everybody that comes to a constellation, at least the ones that me and Ceylan do. So what is important is when you have done your constellation, you can actually go back to the drawing board, and you'll have to make new decisions, because you will have to change habits of self before real things can start to solidify in your life, because it takes deliberate and consistent effort and commitment to change the programs that define you. So imagine that I have all different outcomes with constellations. I do the money and business constellations. And what I've seen is that people that do business constellations, for instance, let's say they're in a rut and they're feeling a little bit, unmotivated. And we constellate, let's say, their ideal clients, we constellate their business, we constellate, different parts, their money. And when they have a conversation with it, they can literally the next day make a decision and say, I am so excited about meeting my future potential, and my clients are waiting for me. I am going to do it. On the other hand, if this person doesn't do anything with it because they fall back into the story or the identity of, I don't feel like taking all this risk to actually put myself out there in my business or in dating, they literally are not committing to the future self, and they're not committing to new habits, and then nothing changes. So a constellation is not a magic pill. It isn't. It can only give you a very clear picture of where you are now. Yeah. So the way that I work is I discovered for myself that we need 4 steps to allow in a desired quantum potential. The first thing is you need to make the invisible visible. So are you really clear about how aligned you are, or whether you're actually not entangled with some kind of program in the family or the collective? And the next step is, very often when things are not happening in our lives, it is because a higher quantum potential from a higher consciousness has not been invited or embodied or integrated in a person's life yet. So it's missing. So these 2 alone take time. And then in day-to-day life, people have to commit to the new quantum potential. They have to water it. So you have to do your meditation, you have to do your scripting, you have to do your visualization, or walk as it, and then, the next step is, we call it the time bending games. Creation is already done. That's the name of the games that I want to run. Creation is already done. Just play the game, play it, and don't attach too much meaning in it. And those 4 steps, when you run through them, you will literally avoid being clueless, waiting, or stuck in lacking and survival states. Yeah. So, and when you actually think about inviting higher consciousness, we're talking about people having to take responsibility. So here at 200, they'd step out of victimhood, which is hard, I will tell you, it's not easy. And then they have to go to this huge, huge, huge step, which is trusting. And that is another free webinar that I will run, because I see that this is the biggest hurdle for a lot of people and also for myself. And I will tell you how I overcame it and how I see other people overcoming it. And then when they then go to 310 and 350, they actually start to gain more momentum and they start seeing big shifts happening. But before this work is really done from within, they will actually feel very stuck because of all the programs running down here. So why do we have undesired manifestations? It's because a lot of us are walking around in trance states. So when we do the work, again, in Constellations, I try to teach people how to stay in this state of mind. And that is really the heart and brain coherent state of mind. And then to, from that place, release and clear all the programmed feelings, habits, and identities that show up in our lives. So how do we do the clearing? Well, there are 4 ways you can handle the feelings and emotions that show up from that are, you know, that are like a construct of the programs that we have running. So we can express the programs. So we can express, blame, vent. We can suppress it, also a very, very popular choice. We can escape it and say, nothing is going on, I'm really good, nothing is going on, or we can release it. And that's what I work with. I'm working with a method called the release technique, which is something that I have been studying since 2013. I started manifesting things very quickly when I started doing this technique, and I've been immersed in that community for quite some time. And I've seen a lot of people turn around, mainly their financial lives. And this is why I kept doing that method, because I felt, well, I just stick with what works, and it's very, very easy to teach and learn. And that's why I stuck with it. But the release technique really is teaching us to go into a state of the quiet mind. And I would say the quiet mind is the same as being in the present moment. Yeah. So they actually discourage us from listening to all the chatter in our mind. They just say you go directly to all knowingness. And what they mean is, when you are no longer tuned into your own little programs and excuses and I can't, or it's not possible, or envy or resentment, you actually are going to be more tuned into the greater mind, which is the quantum non-local knowledge that is all around us. Yeah. And so this is what I teach people when they do courses with me. And it takes time. So what do people do? They have to witness themselves being here in a trance, wanting, lacking, in separation, being a victim, and they have to train themselves to be here, and they have to take responsibility for everything. And so what is the first step in the constellations? We see entanglement. Sometimes the ancestors show up. Not always do the ancestors show up, because I don't actually invite them in. I want people to really be faced with their own power and their own lack of alignment without talking about their parents again, or the teacher, or whatever. But sometimes the ancestors do show up. And when they do show up, it's very powerful. And there's a reason why they show up. We have a lot of state of survival emotions that we need to clear, or there's a lot of scarcity. There is not enough type of pendulums or collective consciousness that we need to clear. And very often we also clear split intentions. And what we do is with the clearing is we literally make people see that they need to stop this running. They need to integrate and embody and practice living in the state of creation, which is in a state of allowing of everything. And I do that in a certain way. When we do the constellations, we bring in a lot of different concepts, but you know, it could be money, it could be love and prosperity consciousness that was never present in the system. It could be the future self that is like a foreign concept to a person. It could be love and acceptance towards specific things that they reject about themselves, or it could really be looking, very closely at what have they denied. Is there something that they're afraid of that they haven't looked at? Is there some trauma that they actually have, basically denied for themselves? Or are they really actually very still loyal to basically maybe one of the parents' lack of success or lack of flow in life? So yeah, there's a lot more than I can say. We work with goal charts. So every time, we make it very, very clear, like, what do you want to achieve? And so we then constellate your attachment to something, which is, I want it. And if I can't have it, I'm going to be really upset, to, I actually don't want this goal. So we actually ask people, the representatives, to represent your attachment and aversion. And then we have the issue holder clear. And when they clear, we see what happens. The representatives give feedback. Very often, we also clear the field of memories, and the memories could be the memories of themselves or the memories of their ancestors. And what we do is, these are feelings or identities of stuckness, I'm not good enoughness, etc., or I'm not going to be chosen for this job or this relationship. All of these type of identities or thought forms, we actually help them clear it. And on the second hand, we also encourage people to actually work on their goals so that they're all every day connecting with the quantum potential. And so I came up with this clearing chart where you have a goal, you write down the memories you have about the goal. And very often you can see we want something. Let's say we want a new perfect career, but then we still haven't cleared our memories of self-sabotage, or we haven't cleared our memories of rejection by bosses, clients, or betrayal. So our vibrational set point is not of, hey, I want this. Our vibrational set point, when we think about the new perfect job or the new perfect career, is grief, fear, and shame. So this is why we need to clear. And the identities that are the neural networks we keep firing and wiring are, I'm not good enough, oh, work is horrible, I actually don't want to run my own company, or no, there's not enough jobs for me, blah, blah, blah. And so when we do the clearing, we really, really do it very thoroughly. And what was very important in the Lester Levinson teaching, which is the release technique that I was teaching, is it was very important that we would go to this level of consciousness, which is we say yes to everything. We accept everything. We accept that you might fail. We accept that you might be betrayed. We accept that you might fail, but we also accept that you might get your goal, that the goal will fall in your lap. So we accept everything. There's no resistance. And in that state of mind, we also forgive everybody and ourselves. And what is very important is that in the state of acceptance, David Hawkins said, the people that are living in the consciousness of acceptance, they really realize that nothing can be taken from them and nothing can be given to them. And so when you have that level of consciousness, you're not walking around lacking, you're not feeling lack. You just command matter because you know you are a master, you know you're an infinite being. So yeah, that was it. So what we do in Constellations, we really, the way that I work is with courses. I have a download and then I create a course. And but a lot of it is about new inspired ways of being, more in this scale of consciousness, but by really overcoming these states of mind that have to do with a lot of programs or memories or repressed emotions that we've never faced, a lot of fears that we've never cleared. And so we have the cocoon here. There's a lot of transformation when people work in a group with us and people are changing their vibrational set point. And then, yeah, so instead of being in the trance or in the trance monkey states of mind, as they say it in fast EFT, you rewire your neural network, you wake yourself up when you're in the program, and you master the mind by really creating new habits. So yeah, I hope that that was clear. And maybe, I don't know, Ceylan, maybe you have something to add, or Simona, or Joy, or maybe there are questions. Simona, you look very ready.
So it was so funny because when I came home, I was rewatching one of the constellations, and I just picked one of the videos, and I didn't even start it from the beginning, but just somewhere. And then you said, if we want to be queen or king of our kingdom, we need to manage all of our parts. Otherwise, we are not queen or king. And I mean, that's what we have to learn in this life, how to manage our energy, our different parts. And that's what we do with constellations. And we see the relations of these different parts, and which parts are with us and which parts are really looking at us, and the other parts that are looking away, or parts that we are not even aware of. And sometimes that's really, or most of the time, that's really what stands between us and what we want, or the goal that we want. That's what's so great with constellations, because then we really have a clear picture, and we can become queen or king, because then we can do whatever we have to do. And I thought that was very beautiful.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, beautiful. And I know that, Simona, you've done a lot of constellations work actually before you worked with me, right? And they were probably, I'm just assuming, I don't think they were about quantum potentials.
No, they were not about quantum potentials. What we always included was a goal and symptoms, and an intention, but it was very different. Of course, we also worked, with the inner child and parts of us, like the trauma or the pain or whatever, but we never worked with quantum potentials. And I mean, I find that very, very interesting to combine, the Dr. Cho thinking and the constellations. That's just, yeah, it brings it to a different level, and it gives a very clear direction.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you, Simona. Joy, you've been with us since the receiving game when we were teaching time bending, and you've seen Simona do time bending recently and her success. And you've seen my work evolve as well. I think you were saying that because we were clearing, the constellations were much more intense. I don't know what you said, except, but I do know that you always said, oh my God, I was a representative of this person and I got so much out of it. And it wasn't even your constellation. Because one of the things that Ceylan and I were discussing is, like, a lot of people are a bit scared to work in a group. They say, oh no, I'd rather do my own constellation. But if I think of the people that work with us, actually, some of your biggest breakthroughs can happen in somebody else, their constellation. And maybe, yeah, I don't know what you would like to share, Joy, but maybe you have something to share.
That's very true. I mean, what you just said is very true. I think now it seems a little more concrete or materialized in a way. And I love the time bending quote you said, where the future is, future affects the past, which is really now. And we don't really think about that. And I know that you're right about being in a constellation where it wasn't my constellation, it was somebody else's constellation. And they were talking about some of their childhood memories that came up in the constellation, and their feelings, and their being rejected, and their family situations. And some of the things that they talked about totally touched me and gave me a breakthrough, because it was a part that maybe I was suppressing or not acknowledging or not seeing. I think it was buried so deep in my mind that I couldn't access it by myself. And by seeing it in someone else, I could then access it in myself. And that is one of the things that I find so powerful, that I love being part of constellation, even if I'm an observer, even if I'm maybe not a super big part of it, like just a little part of it, because the piece that I'm constellating is not so active. But it had to show up for a message in that moment, which happens. Like some parts are bigger parts and other parts are littler parts, but they all come together in a way that you can't even anticipate before you do a constellation. So it's like an adventure. I think it's a little bit like being on a treasure hunt, because you don't know what you're going to find at the end. You have a hope that there's a pot of gold, so to speak, but which is achieving the goal. That's the pot of the gold, pot of gold.
Yeah.
But you might get something entirely different. And I know in one of my constellations, I even forget what the topic was of the constellation. Maybe you remember, Angelique or Celine.
Maybe Simone and I will remember.
But my grandpa Joe showed up.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I hadn't thought of Grandpa Joe in like so long. And he showed up with a really powerful message. And I think it was in a couple of my constellations where he kept coming back. So
Yeah.
it was like the past and the present, and it was all sort of intertwined.
I have
And
goosebumps again talking about Grandpa Joe. Simona, could you explain what Grandpa Joe taught us? He was such a he would be interviewed by me if he were alive now. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, what he showed us was he was living at his time what we try to live to live now, and he was just following his ideas, and he was actually time bending in a way, because he lived in a time where there were so little possibilities, but he just had a vision, and he was sure that he would get or fulfill that vision, and he was just following that path, and I think that's what he was showing us, that trusting in that vision. Yeah, he was an entrepreneur. Yeah.
So basically, I think we were doing a perfect career goal constellation for you, Joy, and we're talking about, one of the thought forms was, oh, there are so little jobs, so many applicants. And then I started, because your Joy is in sales, so I started talking about the book that I'm reading called Spiritual Selling. And this guy is actually called Joe, and his grandfather showed up during a medium meeting, and his grandfather gave him all these messages, and that's when he turned to become very spiritual. And he sold. He's writing this book called Spiritual Selling 2.0 now, the 2.0 now, right now. And Joy suddenly said, oh my God, I don't know. My grandpa is Joe, and I found his picture with me as a baby in my CV. And I was like, how does the picture of you and your grandpa show up on your CVs? But anyways, after a while, when Joy started talking about Grandpa Joe, and I didn't invite Grandpa Joe in, but through synchronicity, he emerged. And Joy told us that Grandpa Joe, as a Jew who wasn't allowed into Harvard, got into Harvard.
In 1917. In 1917. Like World War I-ish,
So we're talking about a time and a man with a consciousness that wasn't thinking, I cannot get in as a Jew. I cannot be this because of circumstances. I think he ignored circumstances, and he turned out to become, let's say, a philanthropist as well. So in his time,
later he was he started a program for underprivileged. At the time, they were underprivileged and children from gangs, but it was back in the 30s, and actually was in the 50s he started that, and it was just against everything. It was against everything, this program he started. And a white Jewish man starting a program for Black underprivileged children in Philadelphia in a rough neighborhood. And he did it.
And so what Grandpa Joe was showing us while Joy was struggling with this pendulum that there are not enough jobs and that she was not going to be chosen, Grandpa Joe showed up and it shifted the whole constellation. So it was, for us, it was like, wow, this is exactly how it is to really be the future self. He was living as the future self, the Grandpa Joe. So yeah, so that was why, you know, he was such an inspiring figure. I don't know, Ceylin, have you ever had a future self type of moments in the constellation work that you do?
I mean, I haven't done much constellation work, but what you're telling me is what I've done.
Oh, really?
Unconsciously. And so I was more curious on what it is, but I can see, you know, I could take all the boxes off, you know. So yeah, I'm working, you know, shitting the stuff out and putting into the light and releasing it and playing with my future self and, you know, being more calm in that. So
That's beautiful.
yeah.
Beautiful.
So it was really nice to listen to, and I have a lot of energy downloads right now for the last 3 hours. So I had a former partner in my business I met today. I just realized I released him. So now it's just things just coming up, and I know getting down or whatever you call it. So this is
Yeah.
really intense for me right now.
Yeah. I know, Ceylin, we actually already do clearings with sentences, right? And the movements, we're already clearing. But the way that I work with clearings is more like an active commitment of a person to overcome a limiting belief. Would you say that's true, Joy and Simona? It's like when people are in the constellation and their job is standing there saying, I want you, and they're like, oh, I don't feel good enough. Then I step in and say, okay, when are we going to, let's welcome this feeling of not good enough with love. We welcome it up and we let it go. It's a feeling, you know. And I know that Dr. Joe at one point said, somebody asked him something about some kind of, what's going on? Yeah, somebody called me and then I couldn't see anything. Sorry. What did I want to say again? Yeah, somebody was asking Dr. Joe about some kind of limiting belief, and he said, oh, that's just a neural network. So sometimes, you know, we give too much energy to these old neural networks running the show. And that is why I said, okay, we can do a 4-hour constellation, which I did in my trainings, waiting till somebody has a breakthrough. Or we actually step in and say, okay, let's do a clearing now, but let's do it with love. And let's do it with a lot of respect. And I don't know, you know, I know, Simona, you've done so many constellations, which were less without the clearing, I would say, or bringing in techniques like fast EFT or releasing. Did you feel that the clearing enabled a faster shift? Maybe sometimes not even for the person itself, but more for the people around it. I don't know.
Yes, it did. I remember quite a few of my constellations, not with you, but before, where I was at the end of the constellations in resistance, and I didn't feel anything. And that, I think, was very different when we did the constellations and the clearing as well, because then you can get rid of that resistance and the energy can move again. And I think that's really combining the releasing and the consolation is great. Yeah. So it's really, you know, like let start it gets rid of these blocks that hold you back, and
Yeah. Yeah.
in a very quick way. And
I agree. And I think when we did the Gandhi, where somebody would like say all the things that were their resistance or block, and then everybody was sending it love, and then you got to a point where you couldn't say those things anymore. I thought that was such a powerful way to actually see and embody it, in the sense that you literally couldn't say anything anymore when you got to that clear place, which I found fascinating. Like it's like, really, would that happen? Yeah, but
Yeah,
it does.
I'll explain it.
That
So
Gandhi was really powerful.
So we do the Gandhi when, let's say, somebody is really, let's say you have somebody, a voice in your head that says you're just not good enough, or you're not ready, you'll make a mess of it, blah, blah, blah. So we ask the person to do two things. We either ask them to be the voice and to choose somebody to represent their future self, to say, I love you to them, and really love this voice in them. Or we ask the person to do the reverse, that they embody the future self, and they ask somebody to represent that voice or program. And what we found is this, and this is a really beautiful process, is that when the person really connects with the love, the other person or the program can literally not run anymore. And so when we do these constellations and clearings together, it is very interactive. We bring in things like the goal. People don't even know they're the goal. They don't know they're the new job. They don't know they're, the new, I don't know, the money, but they literally give you the information of what is missing, or their frustration with the issue holder, the client. And then people can see, oh, wait a minute, I need to step up, and they can make that choice. So you're not left in the dark thinking, why am I not getting my manifestation? Yeah, literally, there are things that often we need to change. So as an example, my money constellation was a big turnaround point for me, because literally a person in my money constellation fell asleep. It's not kidding. That person was not tired. There was so much repressed energy in me that person was zapped out. And so now every time we see people falling asleep, it's literally life force that is not expressed. Yeah, that was happening in my money constellation. And my money was really not happy with me. So, and my future self was not even wanting to look at me, because they would say, I'm not interested in you. And because I wasn't aligning with the future self. So when I rewatched my money constellation, I had to change. I had to do the things that I didn't want to do, which was having structure in my life, which I don't like. And I had to value money. Yeah. So the constellation can give you a lot of information that you can take action upon. And if you take action upon it, it can shift things like very, very quickly. For other people that are very lucky, they are committed, they want a goal, they do a constellation, and it can literally happen during the constellation, or a day after, or a week within a week. So it depends on us. We still have the power. Yeah, I haven't had time to look at all the messages here. So I don't know whether people are asking questions or anything. So
Angelique, that's the first question I've been following. So
okay. Yeah,
there's a lot of beautiful words for you, but you can read those later.
I only work online. Yeah. I want my freedom. But maybe Ceylan and I will do some retreat in France, because I'm happy to go to France. So that is something that I do see happening. Or Turkey, a beautiful place, not cold Holland. It won't be in Holland. So yeah, feel free to ask questions. I mean, Ceylan is also a resource here. I don't know whether anything that you want to say, Ceylan, about, I don't know, something that you've experienced.
I actually do. I had an amazing constellation with Angelique 3 years. Well, I've had many, but one of them I want to give an example to. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I didn't realize I was in a very judgmental place about a certain thing. Like I'm not a judgmental person in general, but I was very much judging this situation, this state. I don't want to, maybe I shared it last time, maybe you can watch that recording. But you know, during the constellation, so I wasn't even picked as a representative. I was just an observer, and that does happen often, by the way. And suddenly I got the energy of somebody, and I was like, I need to speak. I don't know who I am, but I need to express it. I was the person I was judging in the constellation. It taught me so much, and I really switched from this judgmental state to completely unconditional love, and feeling that what I was judging was completely, due to unconditional love, not if anything bad or negative, And so it was really, really beautiful. And Angelique does this really amazing, she's so amazing and loving in the way that she constellates. I really value that very much. And I find it really playful and fun. It's really nice. And working in the group is really also beautiful, I find. I mean, you can do constellations one-on-one, which is as effective. But when you're in a group, then you have the group energy and you have everybody participating, and it just brings another dimension, another depth to it. So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
I mean, Joy and Simona, I mean, would you prefer to do a constellation by yourself or with a group? And I know your answer already, but Ceylan and I have a lot of people that want to do it without a group. But what would you say about what if you were to choose, and what are the benefits of working with a group?
I would say do it in a group, but because you don't know what's going to come up in a group, and there are more possibilities of representatives who can tune in and download aspects that you can't imagine on your own, and to ask one person to do all of those voices, I think would be very difficult. I think I understand there may be some issues that somebody might want to do only in a one-on-one, but I have found that even the most personal, vulnerable, difficult, I don't even know how to describe them, issues or situations that we could have had that impacted our lives overall, whether it's from childhood or past life or whatever. There's no judgment in the constellation. There's an energy field of love. And I've found that all of those constellations have been effective in holding the confidential space and feeling safe, which, maybe if we're transitioning out of this, one of those difficult places, we might not feel safe. And to be in this group where there's a group energy that is safety to move through this situation is incredibly powerful and healing. So the opposite side is, manifesting something we really want, like let's say a relationship or a job or more money, then that also has that benefit of the group energy and the safe space to transition from what we are used to being, what you were saying, that we have to transition from what we used to be to, who we are becoming.
Yeah, the vibrational match. Yeah.
Angelique, Christina, how do you pronounce your name? I'm sorry. Christian, I think, is asking a question about how to book a session. So could you answer that?
Yeah, so basically, I don't know how you found us, but if you just message us, we have a Telegram group. So if you found us in some way, so you're here because you registered.
I found us through Dr. Joel's kind of group.
Okay, yeah. You will see me probably in one of them, or Ceylan, and you can message us. We have a workshop series every Wednesday. So you can say, okay, actually, I feel I need to be there. You just feel it. You trust your intuition. You just show up. But if you're one of these people that want to do work alone, you can, either contact me or Sayla, depending on, what you feel you want to work on. Yeah.
I want to do a group session, but okay.
Next week you could come, next week or the week after that, depending on what you feel you resonate with. Yeah.
And
So
it's
we
the same
post-
time at 8 in the evening or what, on Wednesday?
It's usually starts at 8:30 actually.
Okay,
So
8:30.
we post in every group. So actually Angelique does mostly, but you'll see the topic of the week, and then you can just go to the link and sign up. You need to sign up in advance.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm aware of the time, and I would like to ask maybe Simona to maybe share a little bit about what you've noticed in people changing and shifting, maybe not just yourself, but also other people in their shifts as they were working as a group. And I first set up a group for 6 weeks and then extended it with 2 weeks because I felt I needed more support. But I mean, I've seen people completely shift, and and even you've shifted, Simona. You started becoming playful and time bender. So yeah, so maybe you can say a little bit about, we're not yes, you can have big shifts in 1 week or one constellation, but sometimes if you commit to an extended period of time, it can have even more effect.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a lot of changes in our group, like opening up so much more. There was a young woman. She was at the beginning. She was very quiet, and she really opened up, and you could see how life started to show in her and around her. and other people who had a lot of fear, myself included, and how they got rid of the fear piece by piece, and how much it's really, I think we saw a lot of energy changes in our group, and how people started to bloom or to open up and to believe in what we all wanted, and to believe in what we wanted, even that at the beginning we didn't believe in it at all. And I think one of the most important things for me was really what you said, Joy, also. I mean, the group thing, the trust, and the love sometimes that we felt. And I mean, that had a huge effect to know that we were, like there for each other, and there was so much openness and honesty as well. And that's, yeah.
And what I think, you need to trust that the law of attraction works even when you don't think about it. So if you ever decide to join a group or whatever, you will always join the right group. So you will always be working on a theme or on subjects where you don't know anything about these 5 or 6 other or 10 other people, but literally after a few constellations, you think, oh my God, I had to be here. I had to be here. I know now why I felt I had to be here. So there's no coincidence which group you work with. And the things, as Joy said, you might think, oh, I have a lot of self-confidence, but suddenly you're chosen as a representative for somebody who was maybe very insecure at school, and they think, actually, I was very insecure at school, wow, but I completely blocked it, and it still comes up. So there's all these different things that could come up, but also things like, I think I want this goal, but then literally you start working, and in the constellation, actually your real goal shows up. So sometimes people come with a mental goal. Yeah, I think I want this goal. But then the constellation shows them, no, this is actually your real goal. And that is so beautiful because it's so pure. And because we are working with the field, we're working with information, and we're working with the authenticity of what people are tuning into. And they don't have an agenda of judging you, because next week you'll be in their constellation. So you only want to be truthful so that everybody benefits.
Or
Yeah.
you feel very low and then you are chosen as the future self and you get yourself in a totally different state. I mean, that's amazing. Like, yeah, that shows your own potential. And
Yeah. Yeah. So the field has a wisdom where it chooses the right person that's ready to embody a certain energy consciousness that if you told them, I'm going to give you money and act this out, they couldn't. Literally, because the energy in constellation works differently than the willpower to become an actor or role play love. That's still a mental construct. When we work with constellations, the energy really comes through, and it's not something we can force. There is I would almost say, a divine play in it. I don't know. What would you make of it, Ceylan? The downloads that come?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because you start feeling things that maybe you've never felt in your life. It's very clear. It's like, from this state to another state in a very short period of time. And the other thing is that and you talked about that a little bit, Angelique, at the beginning, that the actually constellation starts before the session, as we are in no space, no time. For instance, last week, I knew we were going to work on something very deep because the session started 3 hours before. Suddenly I started feeling this energy and I said, oh, okay, maybe I need to take a nap. Like suddenly I felt I needed to sleep 5 minutes. It was just what I needed. And I just made space for it. I was like, okay, we're getting ready. The energy is getting ready. And then I was not surprised that it was very deep at the end. And sometimes it takes a lot of movement, and so you really can't fake it. And then I think when that movement starts, even several hours beforehand, the representatives are already representing, and usually, this is so common. Like a client, we'll tell an issue holder, pick a representative for, I don't know, your mom, or for this whatever. And the representative will say, well, I knew you were going to pick me. They already knew about it, before you pick them, because they're already in that state, in that energy. So it's hard to explain. You really have to live it, but I think it takes once. And some people say, I was working in a group once, and then she's like, oh, we'll see, like one of the representatives, and she's like in the state, like crying out of it and everything. And then finally she said, I have no idea I could act like that. I said, you were not acting. Like, so she because she was a person who was very closed and private with her emotions. And she was just in front of the group and like crying and yelling and all these things. And she just couldn't believe that she was, that was coming from her, So it's hard to act that, right? Even if you tried. Yeah.
No, you cannot act. And because I chose to work with higher consciousness, because what I saw very clearly, because I did energy healing before I started constellations work, just like Ceylan, I could see that there is a difference between, let's say, the current state of consciousness of the system, which could be apathy, grief, resentment, anger, pride, backstabbing, whatever, and actually the higher consciousness potentials that were never invited in. And so what I do is I literally bring them in. I constellate them in the field, or I acknowledge that this, let's say, healer in the family is bringing that in, and I let the ancestors face this gift that is brought in by the person doing the work. But the people that are embodying it, they literally say, I've never felt this before. And so it's a very, very I feel like we're working on the leading edge, especially now, like I'm encouraging Ceylan to work with quantum potential of healing, and we actually don't even know what that is, but and if we don't have to know. And this is the beautiful thing that I think that we can have, because we really know that there's infinite possibilities. We can play with it. But because there's so many people witnessing it or believing in it or giving it life force, it has to materialize and come in. Yeah. So I don't know whether there's any more questions. We have a lineup of a lot of different workshops. Feel into which one you think you would want to be in. And feel free to message me and Ceylan and ask your questions. We know that the right people will show up, so trust your own intuition as well. We will try to explain what we think we're gonna do, but we never really know what we're gonna do. we just have a few downloads and say, okay, I'll do it, but we actually literally don't know what's gonna happen. It's just very miraculous, but very beautiful most of the time. Always, actually always.
We don't know what's going to happen, but what we know is that everybody is ready for it. Whatever is about to happen, we are all ready for it. And there's something in all of us for it. So, from it. So, yeah.
I want to show up next Wednesday. So I just come into this group and then the constellation work begins. Or how?
We have a booking form in the Quantum Geniuses website, so you can pay on that website, and then you can come in with the Zoom that is that you'll be emailed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just feel free to look at the schedule because there's many of them. So and feel which one you're called to do. You don't have to do the one next Wednesday. You can do whichever one. You can do all. You can pick. You'll know. Like Angelique said, you will know which one. So
Yeah. So if there's no more questions, we're gonna leave it here. I want to thank you all for your time, and I know that Ceylan and we had the first constellation last week. It was very, very deep. I learned a lot about, basically repeating patterns in health conditions and entanglement with the ancestors and repressed emotions. And it has informed my work as well, because although we feel so powerful, which we are, we can never actually exclude the fact that we are still carrying things that do not officially belong to us. So, but what we can do is align with the quantum potential of love that always wants to help us, and that when brought in can literally open the hearts of everybody in the system. And so Ceylan did an amazing job. I literally said at the end of the constellation, I'm so glad Ceylan is doing this, because I don't want to do this type of work. It was, for me, it was so was very, very difficult work to do. But yeah, I'm so glad that people can experience this type of healing work with health imbalances with you, because it's not easy. It's not easy. Yeah. Although I would say that also the manifesting a job wasn't easy. Ladies, and I've done the basically open and ready to receive love constellations, and they were also not easy. When I was interviewing people, oh my gosh, I could literally say, yeah, if I were you, I would be single too. Sometimes when you look at the histories of people and what we carry, and we think, no, I don't want a relationship. Yeah.
But at the same time, it just, no matter what it is, like whatever we're working on is difficult for us at the moment. But then once we're on this, once we do this work, we dare and we do it, everything starts unfolding. And we're like, why didn't I do this before? If I knew this was going to be this simple, why did I wait for so long to do this? So no matter what the issue we are working on is, it's difficult because we have a limitation in it. And when we get to release it, then life becomes so playful and easy suddenly. So.
Yeah. The only thing I would say is look at maybe the beginning of your Dr. Joe journey or whatever healing journey you've undergone, and look at how far you've come. Yeah. And that is only because you really, really felt that you loved yourself too much to stay stuck. That's it, And sometimes, you know, you've been given this information because you are crazy enough to come to a workshop. So because most people, when you talk about the quantum and quantum potentials and changing boxes, they look at you and they think, or by causality, time is not linear. They're gonna think, whoa, you know, their mind, they just basically like think you're crazy. But we know that we're not crazy, so that's what counts. Yeah.
Or we're all crazy, either or.
Yeah. There's only a group of crazy people that will change the world. Yeah. So hopefully we'll see you next week or the week after that. And yeah, feel free to message me and Ceylan. And yeah, we'll be sharing more information later on in other free presentations, but we also want to do some real workshops so that you can experience it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Joy and Simona. Thank you, everybody. Lots of love. Bye. Bye-bye.